Yo, it's a New York. Yo, it's a New York. Yo, it's a New York. To New York, to New York. With the yo, it's a New York. Yo, it's a New York. Yo, it's a New York. To New York, to New York.
And welcome to Crash Chords Autographs. Today, Matt welcomes one of the most creative comedic musicians to emerge from the West Coast, Mike Phirman. With his humble, self-released ditties, Phirman's capacity for brilliant satire also extends to a penchant for overblowing benign subjects such as breakfast, street meat, and children's games. Whatever subject is at his whim, he consistently extracts a hilarious and addicting adventure. An early interview between Matt and Phirman concerning his first album, The Very Last Songs I Will Ever Record, Part 1, can be found in the link below. Ever since the release of that album in May 2010, Phirman has released a series of one-shots, which can all be found on his Bandcamp page, amongst them his latest single, What Makes the Breakfast. This time around, Matt and Phirman discuss the process behind writing a great comedy music song, Phirman's many influences, how certain tracks came together, and finally, the peculiar position he is placed in as a full-time family man, thus caught between writing funny kids songs and writing funny songs for adults. So without further ado, here's Matt Storm and Mike Phirman.
Hey, Mike, how are you, man?
Good. How's it going, man?
Good, good. It's been a whopping 5 years since we last spoke.
Are you serious?
Well, I saw you once on tour a couple years later, I think, but the first phone interview I ever did was with you back in 2010 when my website was a lowly little blog, and I transcribed the whole thing.
That's right. I remember that. I mean, I definitely remember I just didn't realize it's been 5 years. My God.
2010. You had only had one baby very recently, and the album had just come out. Now I hear you have two babies.
I have had a couple of things come out now, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old.
Wow. How's fatherhood treating you?
Good. It's good. No, it's the productivity it's a killer. You don't. That's back when I was, putting out an album because I had that kind of time, and now it's the same amount of energy goes into making a song just because the amount of time I actually get out here.
Yeah.
Very little. I say here. I'm out in the music studio, which is why it took me so long to call you. My phone battery is like 1% away from dying, so I had to run inside and grab our spare landline phone and run back in and plug it in like it's 1976 or something like that. But
wow.
I'm on an actual corded phone right now. It feels very weird.
I didn't know they still made those.
I don't think they do. I think we got this one for a garage sale just in case. The idea being there's an earthquake or something like that, we would have
some way to...
Yeah, although now I think about it, we're on digital anyway. It goes through a digital AT&T thing. So, in fact, I would think a satellite cell phone would probably be better than a landline if there's an earthquake, right? Because maybe it's farther away.
Probably. I don't know. Maybe. Let's say yes. What's the worst that could happen? The internet tells us we're wrong.
Yeah, exactly. How's it going with you? How's the show going?
Good. So since we last spoke, I now have two podcasts. One that I do weekly. It's an album review show with two co-hosts, and we review an album every week. Every month we bring on a guest, and they bring an album, and that's been a lot of fun. And
cool.
I've also
any genre or just anything.
Any genre. We tend to each choose stuff that we more lean to, but when we bring a guest, they sometimes blow us out of the water, and we've recently started getting fan requests too. So my favorite album of last year was actually something a fan recommended, which was nice.
Oh, nice. What was that? That
was a man named Owen Paulette and his album In Conflict. He's kind of like a composer, singer-songwriter from Canada, and it was kind of a lot of indie music, but mixed with orchestration and various instrumentation and great vocals. It was a very eclectic and unique record that I really latched onto.
Owen Paulette.
Yes, Owen Paulette. Pallett. Yeah, you should. I think you'd dig it. And also besides that, of course, the website's been doing well. It's now an official.com. It looks like a legit website, not a 18-year-old blog roll. So that's always nice. And then so the second show I started is the one that you are on as we speak. It's called Crash Chords Autographs, and it's more or less the same thing we did 5 years ago, except now I don't have to write it down. I can just save it after we're done talking and then put it online.
That is possibly. Oh, nice. There you go. That is probably the handiest thing about having a show. I would imagine is that you have conversations with people, but you don't have to do what I have to do, which is go. Actually, I don't have to either. Jot down something you are recommended or something like that. You can just go back and basically all these conversations are recorded, so you have them on file to reference. If you're like, what was that thing you were talking about? I'll just go listen to it.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
I don't remember. We don't have. I wasn't recording us at the time.
Yeah, memories for adults are going to go shorter and shorter and shorter as the years go on because we don't have to really remember anything. We just record or write or digitally save everything.
That's what Ray Kurzweil says.
So I heard the new song that just came out, which I loved. My first question was going to be actually because I did also reread the interview that we did 5 years ago and realized that a lot of my greatest hits questions-wise were reached there. So I'm just going to assume nobody read that and ask you some of them anyway.
I can't even quite remember it, so I'd be curious to go read it too. Or you can just re-ask them right now. It'd be funny if you asked me some of these, like, who are your influences, and they're totally different now.
It would be like you could just pull up the article and be like, no, I'm not going to tell them that one. I'm going to tell them this one instead. So I'm, of course, a huge fan of your music and your work. I loved the full record, The Last Songs I Will Ever Make, part 1, which it's funny because I've shared it with a lot of my friends and they love it. And then they just go, well, when's part 2 coming out?
Right.
And it's like facepalm. That's the bit.
Right.
That's the gag.
Right. Yeah.
But I was curious if you do have a full length in the works. I know you say you don't have a ton of time with the kids, but are you working on a full length release, or are you just going to stick to putting out single songs as they come up?
Well, these days I am doing. It's so. It takes, like I say, it takes a long time to work on stuff. So when I'm done with something, if it's like this song, the What Makes the Breakfast, What Makes a Breakfast. I don't like saying breakfast. I'm not a fan of it, but I do like saying breakfast. That took months to make, and then when it was done, it just kind of feels like like the ones before it. I don't want to just have it sitting on my computer for what could be another year or two till there's enough to constitute an album. So why have them just sitting here? Why not put them out? And at least they're, maybe on the radio, or maybe they're, they're just being listened to in general. But, it also kind of feels like the album, I'll still, when they're all done, put them all together on an album. I'll probably pull them all off of iTunes and then that same day upload them all as an album. Mm-hmm. But eventually it'll be an album. It's just the idea of waiting and just having them sit there, waiting for a year or 2 or 3. I mean, people might not even be eating breakfast by the time this record comes out. So who knows?
That's true. Or they may have a completely different name for it instead of breakfast or breakfast.
Yeah, exactly. It might be, if we've merged with another country, it could be like Firefly, where now we say it in Chinese. I don't know.
If only it were like Firefly.
What's that?
I said, if only life were like Firefly.
Well, hopefully life won't be canceled too soon. And we're back to Ray Kurzweil. But so the thing about, albums is the stuff I'm doing now is kind of a collection that I'm basically calling it what the album will be, which is songs to sing at children. But so I just say whenever I put them out, I just go here for my ongoing project, songs to sing at children. Then when it's done, well, hey everybody, new album. Guess what it's called? And then I'll call it the very last songs I'll ever sing. Part -1? No. So, but then as far as an adult, and that's actually, you're catching me in the middle of 3 things. One, I'm tethered to a wall, which feels really weird. I feel like a junkyard dog having an actual phone line. It hasn't occurred to me how long it's been since I was on a phone line. 2, it's kind of cold in here, and so if I sound like I'm extra nervous, it's because I'm freezing. And 3, there's kind of I'm kind of trying to figure out how to reconcile or integrate or separate the different kind of modes of music that I'm doing these days. Just because I kind of got into this thing, as the story goes, I had this song Chicken Monkey Duck, which is on the record that you mentioned earlier. And I got an email from a guy at a kids radio station who was like, hey, how about we play this on our station? I say, hey, that sounds great. Anything you want to do with it, do it. So, awesome. They play it, and they play it a lot, and it does really well. And I'm like, oh, wow, well, okay. So it's kind of got this little kids radio following. And I think, oh, I don't want to be too George Lucasy about it and and swap out an entire planet full of awesome Wookiees for teddy bears, but maybe I should do some kid stuff, and
Sure.
so start doing stuff that is kid friendly with the idea that their parents won't want to murder me, because it's too cutesy and, like the idea that, I just wanted to be, it'd be great to do something like Muppets or, Warner Brothers where everybody can enjoy it. It's got actual music to it and it's not too playing down to kids, but it is still totally kid friendly. And so I've done like 3 of those, this breakfast one being, I'm basically saying like kids invited, not required kind of thing.
Right.
Listen to the Muppets. You probably wouldn't with your, who knows? Actually, I would. But a group of adults in a car might not necessarily reach for the Muppets first.
Those are not adults. Those are not adults that I want to know. Those are not my kind of people.
Well,
I'm just saying.
I mean, like I said, I would still do that. But but the thing is that I do still have like ideas for songs that I would very much like to do. An album or just songs that are intended for adults. And so that's where I'm kind of at this like, all right, what am I doing? I should have probably called the kid stuff by a different name if I was going to be like, I'm going to do kid stuff. Or I come up with whatever. I was going to say come up with an adult thing, but at that point I've already made an adult album. I'm not going to make, how about this? Every album, I'm going to call it a different name and I'm going to call myself something different. So
there you go.
Every instance of me only has one record.
There you go.
And someday somebody will be like, did you know those 7 people are all the same person?
It's funny. I'd say that's kind of crazy, but honestly, in this like totally digital culture, you could probably pull it off pretty easily.
Right. Well, the only thing, it'd be great if you didn't want anybody to find your other stuff, because the great thing about having a consistent name is they go, what else has he done?
Yeah, of course.
But that's also the not great thing. If they're looking for kid stuff, if they're like, oh, that was cute, what else has he done? And then it turns out this stuff is not necessarily appropriate for kids. Not that I'm always, as you know, pretty clean.
Yeah.
Hard and firm stuff is not clean.
Nope.
But my own stuff is clean. It's just not necessarily, the same thing with the adults reaching for, a kid's record. Odds are these kids might not be interested in, songs about, I don't know, what do I have songs about?
A dance song that the guy gives up halfway through?
Yeah. I guess I can do that. But yeah, so I'm kind of in the middle of I think I'll release this as a kid's record when it's all done. And then probably start doing songs for, I don't know. I'm over. I also overthink things.
Yes, I suffer from the same problem, so I totally relate. Speaking of Hard and Firm, you did release a song that I did a small article on since the last time we spoke, which is, of course, She's Giving Me Gershberms, that you had done with the Swedish Chef and with Mr. Chris Hardwick, which I quite enjoyed, mostly because of how ridiculous it was.
It's ridiculous.
What was it like to record a song with a Muppet? Was it surreal?
It was crazy. Oh yeah, because it was as soon as you see Swedish Chef, you're immediately 7 years old.
Yep.
And he's very big. He's not a little tiny like hand puppet. He's like he looks like, oh, he's in the room. Here he is. He looks like if Obama walked in the room or something like that. All of a sudden, they treat him very, very well. Like he's they don't just kind of like here and throw him across the table or anything. Like he's got his handlers and stuff like that. And it was funny because we actually recorded his vocals on the set of the video that we were shooting for the song. So everything was there with some temp, me doing, but
right.
Which I thought was like, it's a pretty good Swedish Chef impression until I heard him actually do it. I'm like, oh,
nope,
near it. Wow. That's the real voice. That's the perfect voice. And so when I got there, we had this temp thing laid in with the idea being that we will sneak off halfway through. We'll do a couple things, we'll shoot until he can get there. And then we will go. And by the way, when I say he, Swedish Chef is done by 2 guys, one of whom does the voice, and then the other guy does hands. So it's actually, Swedish Chef is 2 dudes. The guy who does the voice came over to this, like, as soon as he got there, we went to, I think, either a van or an SUV, and I had set up like a laptop and a tiny mic stand, and we just recorded in this, in this SUV for half an hour. I very quickly cut it together, to take the best, pieces of everything, turn it around, give it to the sound guy so that he can record to it. So he basically recorded his track and then lip synced to it within like an hour. So
Wow.
it was a crazy fast, like, it wasn't just the, come over to the studio, we'll hang out, we'll record at leisure, we'll cut it together the next day or two. Like, it was like, bah, 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 bah. It was really fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, the video seems like a lot of fun, and it's just it's one of those things that I didn't know was coming out, and then like it shows up in my Facebook feed, and I see it. Either you or Chris shares it, and I'm like, wait, what? No. No.
We were the first of the U2 generation to just make it on your computer, and you have to delete it if you don't like it.
Yeah, right, exactly. But I loved the song. I thought it was hilarious and silly and ridiculous, and it's always fun, because I follow you guys separately as well as obviously as Hard and Firm, but you guys haven't put out as much Hard and Firm stuff together. So it's always nice when something that both of you worked on pops up, because I love your individual careers, but also the team of Hard and Firm is unbeatable as well.
Oh, thanks, man. We actually just performed together for the first time in quite a while at the San Francisco Sketch Fest.
Oh, nice.
Over the weekend. Yeah, we did a tribute to Weird Al.
Oh, I saw that. I saw a post about it. That's cool. It was really awesome.
Yeah, it was fun.
That was the next thing I wanted to actually ask. Going back to your full-length record, you have a song on it with Weird Al called Streetmeat. How did the concept for Streetmeat come about? Is it something that you just sort of had the idea first and then built a song around it, or did the music kind of lend you to go, hey, this sounds like a song that could be about streetmeat?
That was in D.C. I think my wife was the first person to actually. She and I were walking along right outside the White House, and God, what is it? How is it? I think she was pregnant, and she wasn't supposed to be eating too much of anyone thinking this or that, and so there was street meat. There was a street cart, and she just kind of goes, "Street meat, you taught me." And I was like, "Ha, there you go, that's pretty good." And just like, hey, how about that? How would you feel? So I ran over real quick and started recording what is the basic, chorus to it. And then from there, just try to fill it out. But that one totally started with, like a street. Yeah.
Nice. Is she the female vocalist on the choruses in the actual track?
She is not. That was our babysitter at the time. But that's the thing about Los Angeles is you have it is the craziest talents around you. The woman who was babysitting for us at the time, this was her day job, but she was a really, really talented actor and singer named Danielle Kaplowitz. Mm-hmm. And she just happened to, I'm talking about it, and I'm like, I think I'm gonna have try to get a real singer, And either my wife had told me that she sings, or she was like, oh yeah, I sing, and so I just said, is there any chance you'd want to? And I think it was while she was babysitting my kid, my kid was off to the side, and she came inside and into the studio and did all the vocals, which is actually the first time I've had somebody sing background vocals. The second time being this last song, the What Makes the Breakfast, with a woman named Angel Lakita Moore, who is also really talented and also pregnant at the time that she sang it, which is kind of weird. Oh, you know what? Danielle wasn't pregnant. I just combined two ideas there. She did become pregnant, not at that recording, but later. All right.
Well, hey, the devil's in the details, right?
It's a very fertile environment.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Are you trying to say, Mike Phirman, that you breed fertility around you with your music?
I breed fertility.
I don't know.
It's an interesting. It is a very it's a fun place, but not insinuating anything.
But
the what's up?
No, so I was going to say, it's interesting to hear how a song like that specifically came about. Is that typically how you make a lot of your comedy songs? Essentially, is the punchline first? Like, do you come up with the idea and then kind of build music around it?
Yeah, usually. I think I have kind of two song types that I tend to do, which are there's the hook and just an idea of like, oh, like streetmeat, where it's like
Right.
that's kind of a catchy little earworm, and I like it, and there could be more to it, and then that one requires a lot of writing. That one requires okay, so verse, and the thing, and towards the end, that song kind of goes into like this kind of second half where it's not related to the first half, kind of the little dream sequence thing.
Yeah.
It was kind of an ordeal because I was not sure how I was going to get back to the beginning part. I think I was listening to like a Merlin Mann talk at the Maximum Fun Con, and he had this, he was doing the talk about, sometimes you just, whatever your ideas are, you're trying to force ideas into this and that. Sometimes you gotta leave them be themselves and don't force them, or something like that. And I just had this like, oh, you know what? Yeah, I'm not gonna try to force it. It's just gonna be its own section, and it's gonna ride out until the end. So that one rides out to the end because of a Merlin Mann speech. But yeah, that one, those kinds where they just start as a hook or they start as some kind of just, fun little percussive phrase or something like that. Those ones are fun, but they're a little more work, and they're not the one I prefer. The type that I prefer are ones where it's just a musical joke, where it's like kind of clear the floor, or the one of the guy falls asleep and the irony and wine.
Irony and wine, yeah.
Like that, they're just like, it doesn't matter what the lyrics are really. It's just like the whole, it's a spoof of a song. I guess what I'm saying is, of the two types, a song that you really write out and the kind that it doesn't matter what the lyrics are because you're spoofing it, I'd prefer to do more of the second.
Oh, cool. Well, yeah. Well, I guess your Wookiee would fall into that category as well, which you released ages ago on your website, which is also, a spoof of an older song, a parody, if you will.
Right. Although I feel like with Weird Al being the parody guy, I don't really. That was there. I've done a couple parodies, but usually I kind of like if I do have a parody idea, I'm like, nah. It feels like that's already.
Well, it's kind of hard to compete with Weird Al, the man who's ubiquitous with parody. I mean, the dude's been doing parody for a long time.
I'll let him have those.
Yeah,
I'll be nice. I'll let him. Okay. No, he's got that cornered, so that's fine. Just developing my whatever it is.
My next question is something I know I've asked you before, but I would love for the audience who will be listening to this to hear the answer. With a song like Chicken Monkey Duck, which clearly really has 3 lyrics.
Four.
Oh, right, 4. Sorry, at the end, right. How did you memorize that song when you first wrote it? Because I'm sure that you wrote it just kind of. It was more probably improv initially, but then you had to perform it. So how did you memorize the lyrics?
The same way that I have memorized the Pie song with Chris. Mm-hmm. And let's see, there's another one that I just had to start memorizing. Well, basically, repetition. I just have to put it on loop and just commit for the next month, whenever I have a chance, I'm washing dishes, if I'm driving somewhere, that song is playing and I'm just listening to it constantly, and it makes me, and actually I think it doesn't make me crazy, but it's a little, it's a little tedious, obviously, but for some reason it starts to become musical, and so now, after enough times I can hear it as music, you know what I mean? Like it's, right. There's actually a really interesting articles somewhere, I don't even remember who did it, but they were showing how if you take normal speech and you take a clip of it and you play it on a beat, like, if you find the rhythm to it and you repeated it over and over and over and over, it'll start to sound musical. So like even just like what I just said right there, like it'll start to become musical. If you play that over and over, it'll start to become musical. It'll start to become that will eventually start to register as music to you, such that if you went back and listened to it in context of the sentence again, it'll sound like I all of a sudden just bust into song for a second and then come back to talking.
Interesting.
So I think that's kind of what's happening is I'm listening to it so many times that it just, everything has like this musical little flow to it, and it feels like lyrics, even though it's literally, like you said, like the same three words over and over, just, freestyled.
One of the things that I really love about your live show, and I got to see when you opened for Chris when he was here ages ago, quite a number of years ago, he was playing in Brooklyn, and you opened up for him. You have a wonderful looping machine song that you do.
Right.
Which I enjoy. That's obviously completely legit and incredible looping skills.
Thank you.
Where did the concept for that, because that's clearly something that flies better live. Recording it doesn't have the same effect because it's all about the performance aspect of it. Where did the concept for that come from? Was it just because looping had been so popular in the culture at the time, or is it something that you kind of always just wanted to do?
Yeah, no, I think it was just that I'd seen it a bunch, and, and when I say a bunch, I just seen, like, I had toured with, Chris and I had gone on a short tour with Reggie Watts.
Ah, there you go.
And, I kept saying, like, Andrew Bird did it, and Teresa, I can't remember her name, but there was a musician at the time who, like, had, a video of her doing it in her kitchen and stuff. So just, a couple of those, and I was like, it'd be really funny. It would be, if, it doesn't matter if I blow up to the audience, I guess, but yeah, it'd be really funny if just start getting into impossible sounds, and there you go. I also just love doing sound effect music, so the second that there was like I wonder if they could get that kind of sound out of it. Oh, if they couldn't, why not just record a sound effect of it and then do that? Oh my God, I got to do that. So
yeah, it's one of
the opportunity to do sound effects, I will jump at that.
Well, it's also that moment in the audience when you're sitting and you lean over to pick something up and the fart sound comes across the mic, and then you start to freak out and scramble so it doesn't loop in, and it loops in, and then you just let it go. And it's like, it's moments like that, those laughs are so big, because up until that moment, like, there's a good minute of the gag where it seems pretty legit, where you're just looping the music, you're playing the guitar and all that stuff, and tapping stuff, and then it hits that moment where the fart happens, where we're like, I wonder, and then the plane and the other stuff, and it's a great punchline. I really enjoy that gag. I think also at the time when you'd released it, it was Reggie Watts was pretty much everywhere. So looping.
And I was also very careful. Like right around that time, I was saying at the beginning of it that I am a friend and fan of Reggie Watts, and he is a genius. I think we all know that. There is it's not taking a shot at him at all. Like, I felt like I needed to really qualify, like, hey, look, I am not making fun of Reggie through doing this. This is literally, just a, and then I was told a little after that, like, you don't have to say that. I think people don't think it's going to be, but I was very concerned. I didn't want anybody to think I'm making fun of him, because there's nothing to make fun of. He's also got a sense of humor, so I'm not making fun of a guy who's doing comedy. And that, it'd be one thing if he was, if anything, it'd be, it's not actually, I was going to say making fun of somebody who's very dramatic about it. But even then, it's just playing with that style of music.
Yeah, no, totally. Another song that I wanted to talk about briefly on your full-length record is the final track on the record, which is called Indie. Because as a music fan and someone who follows music tropes through the years and has noticed things, what I like about that song is it pretty much, in a nutshell, captures the beginning of the indie movement and how it was like leaving this punk emo phase into this indie movement. And it's a fun song because it's just pretty much calling shots out at that genre and how it had to go kind of pop at the time.
Right. Yeah. That was. I actually haven't heard that song in so long. It's another one of the songs that I have a couple songs that once they're recorded, that was kind of the life of them. Like I've never performed that song live.
Sure.
I haven't heard it in years, but yeah, that was just a fun the old switcheroo on the indie rock side.
So does playing live, I'm guessing the answer is no, but so when you're making music, your goal is not to make something that you can definitely play live. It's to make something that sounds really great or that's a really great joke so people can enjoy it. If you can play it live, you figure out later, after?
If I was smart, I would be making these in a way that I could play them live. It is a bummer to have, like, What Makes a Breakfast, I have no idea how I would play it live other than to hire a fun band.
Yeah.
And, there's no way. Yeah, a couple of these, or even ones that I'm, that are quite an undertaking performance-wise. Like the piano one, the One for Them, One for Me.
Yes.
When I was done with that song, I recorded it on piano first, and then recorded it vocals. And the idea of playing those together was horrifying because I'm not a great piano player. I'm okay, but but the idea, I got to be able to play this. So I had to spend like a solid month, just practicing that song over and over and over and over until I could finally play it live. But yeah, and that's just a piano and vocals. But yeah, like Sketchy Dudes and Street Meat, if I were smart, I would start writing songs that are actually what I do live, because yeah, they're really meant to be just listened to on your stereo or in your car or your headphones,
Right.
like that,
Well, the fun thing about Sketchy Dudes is that you pretty much almost create a full 3-act play in like
Right.
3 minutes, which I really enjoy. This idea that the gag is not just that Sketchy Dudes are sketchy, because
Right.
that's obvious, especially if you live in Manhattan or LA or any other large city where there's people like that. The gag is what comes after, and I just enjoy when you get a brief moment of the actual artist's dialogue, because the first time when you, the singer, is murdered, that's more or less you. You're talking into your sound booth, and it's your personality coming through, which is always fun to get. And then you get the auto-tuned guy who's your friend who put vocals on it, and he gets killed, and and then the character you create for the cop, and it's just it's a really well thought out play. When you created that song, was it the goal always to kind of create this story arc?
Not at first. At first, it was really just like, having seen a bunch of sketchy dudes in the cities you mentioned, just being, like the hook just got in my head of one sketchy dude and another sketchy dude. And then when writing it down, or was it writing it down or recording it? I might have been recording the demo of it, but basically, just thinking like, he should just get killed at the end by a sketchy dude. And then that just kind of like, if he does, then somebody should follow up. It just, I think it was one of the things where the song was the first idea, and just like, why end it? Kind of kicked in, and almost like I kind of, once it started going, it was kind of like I wonder if this could be like a like a Mr. Show sketch that just keeps going into the next part, and there's no real ending. And I would love to actually do someday, if I had plenty of time, to just do an album like that just keeps going into the next thing, and without necessarily a through line or anything. It just weirdly keeps
going,
giving birth to the next section. But then once it was done, I was like, then there should be a cop, and then pretty ridiculous that in the end the original sketchy dude voice is the informant. It just all kind of tied together. But originally it was one of those earworm ones that would just, once it hooks me, something like that. Like if I've got it in my head and it's got me hooked for like a half an hour or something like that, then I'll be like, all right, if you're hooking me, then I guess it's a hook, and I should record that. So.
Right. And so in that song also, you have a bunch of different sketchy dude voices. Are they all you? Are you doing all those different sketchy dudes in the middle part, or did you have other guest vocalists kind of stepping in to do some extra sketchy dudes?
That is me and a friend of mine, this guy, Lon Sterling, who was a friend he has a great, he has that very like, he can do that voice that really, what are the words? That also is a song I haven't heard in a while. But that, when khakis for women, men don't wear no khakis, like that guy.
Yeah.
And he was telling me about a guy who, while we were talking about it, he was telling me about a guy who, was down in the, like shouting in the alley behind him yesterday, and some of the things the guy was shouting end up in that song because they were just like that, like,
right.
Khakis for women, men don't wear no khakis. We were like,
what?
Can you please record that right now? That's awesome. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, very cool.
And it's true. It's so true. Isn't it though?
Obviously.
Khakis. I mean, really.
Who really wears khakis? Not me.
No,
come on. I also wanted to say congratulations. I saw you on At Midnight very recently on the Facebooks, and that's a fun show. I enjoy watching it, and it's always very funny to see. How was that going on At Midnight? Was that a lot of fun to record?
Oh yeah, that was so much fun. I've done it a few times, And that particular show, this one that was just on, they're all fun. Everybody's, it's Chris, and it's very, the energy of the place is really fun and everything. But once it started, it was with Jermaine from Fly the Conchords,
Sure.
and a guy named Taika Waititi, who's a director and did a movie. He just worked on a movie with Jermaine. And he's a very nice guy. And they're both from New Zealand. Not that this is necessarily about being from New Zealand, but both of their pacing and their tone of answering questions, the times I've been on it, it was, all right, so, what's your answer? And then the person will say their answer or their joke or whatever it is. And maybe there's some back and forth a little bit, but it's pretty much, he pointed to me and be like, Phirman, what do you got? And I'll have my joke. And but he points to Jermaine, and Jermaine has much more be like, well, for this one, I was thinking something like,
Just like half speed.
So laid back. Just made it like, and aside from that, he's also, both of them, hysterically funny. So that
Right.
was, that uncut, uncensored version online is one of the funniest shows I've ever been a part of. It was really, really fun.
Cool. Awesome. That's great. It's funny, as someone who's followed you and Chris and a bunch of other stuff related to Nerdist since the beginning, it's kind of weird where all of that stuff in nerd culture has ended up. Like, he went from being a guy who just kind of blabbed on about nerd stuff to being like at the forefront of nerd stuff, which is cool to see.
Right.
Yeah.
He's an unstoppable force.
He is an unstoppable force. That Chris Hardwick. Well, he's actually, and I've told him this a couple times when I met him, he's the reason I started a blog and a podcast, because, his book kind of motivated me, like, oh yeah, I can do this shit. Why don't I?
Nice.
So that's always fun to share.
Yeah, that's really cool.
But so the next thing I wanted to ask, since you're kind of just doing the songs as you go along, and your goal is eventually an album of some shape, and since What Makes the Breakfast just came out, do you have another song in the pipeline? Have you started working on something else, or is it just this one just came out and you're going to let that mature for a bit?
Yeah, no, I definitely have a little collection of having the kids and spending time with the kids and stuff, and all the work that goes to having the kids and stuff. My wife and I, if I have not made it clear, divide the work with the kids and stuff. So much of the time is spent with the kids and stuff, and there is a lot of, like I say, if there's an earworm or something like that, a hook, I will jot it down. And now the list of jottables is very long, whereas the amount of stuff recorded is very short. So there are a few things that are options to start work on immediately. But as I was mentioning earlier about the moment of, all right, what am I doing? What kind of, I'm slightly trying to balance what tone to keep going forward in, like, 'cause I have, another kid song in mind, but it would pretty much be a kid song. And then that presents the whole, all right, so that's when I don't really perform live at a comedy show or anything, which is a little bit of a bummer because I don't really perform for kids. I've never done a kids show itself.
Mm-hmm.
That's not necessarily who I started out as and when I practice or anything. But then I don't want to do just a straight up not accessible to kids thing, since I'm going in that direction and would like to put out that album pretty soon. So I am ending up where I'm going to try to just do stuff that can appeal to both. I'm just going to do stuff that I think is weird and fun and would hopefully be weird enough to play for both my wife and my kids sitting down at the same time, and not have either one be like, I got to go, So basically, yeah, I'm going to look at what I got and go for hopefully the weirdest one, or just do a kid like straight up kid song that would only take a day or two to record or something like that. But
sure.
This last one took so much time, and then to not be able to record it, to not be able to perform it, is kind of a bummer.
Did it take so much time because it's, there's a little more complexity just in the fact that there's a lot of instruments and stuff? Is that what made it take so long?
Yes, but also because of the amount of time it takes to do that. The amount of time I come out here, the amount of time I spend in the studio, is short. It'll be like just a few hours a day, if that. And And so for a complex song like that, where it's, if I'd have just done guitar, shaker, tambourine, maybe, something like that, that song could have been done. And even then, it would still probably, I'm also kind of a perfectionist, and I will do kind of a Stanley Kubrick of takes. So I will record. And it's also fun. I will sometimes record over and over again, even if I got it, because it was fun to do, and why not?
Sure.
But that said, yeah, it took a long time just because there's not very many hours out here, and recording each one of those by myself. Also, if I was smart, I would probably bring in musicians who are better than me, so it doesn't take me an entire day to do one guitar track, and then the whole next day doing a keyboard track. I would have a guitar player record for an hour, a keyboard player record for the next hour, or bring them all in, perform at the exact same time, be done in real time.
Yeah. Well, you can, and you do what you can, and so, as a fan, the product is fantastic, so I appreciate what you do, regardless of
thanks, man.
the intelligence that leads you there.
Fun. What's that?
I said regardless of the intelligent track that leads you there, I approve of the final product.
Well, thank you.
So obviously then with the kids and with everything else, and you're saying that you haven't really been performing live lately, there's no intent for a tour or to do shows anywhere anytime soon?
Not at the moment. I would love to, but it's going to have to be a thing I put together. I mean, if I in theory, if it all went the way I would like it to, if I do like, say, 2 or 3 songs starting right now that are new songs, I would feel comfortable going out and doing those around, wherever, I don't know what kind of tour I would be planning, but with somebody or, opening for somebody or whatever. But right now, yeah, I don't do too much just because I don't have that much new stuff. And I get kind of bored playing, if I'm just playing the same 4 songs or 5 songs or 6, whatever it is. It just doesn't seem like I'd rather be spending that time here doing new things.
Sure.
New stuff. So, but yeah, if I can, as soon as I can bang out 3 new playable songs, I would love to go out and perform some more.
Very cool. Now I have a really hard-hitting question that is inspired by one of my... And then you got to go?
Yeah, then I'm going to have to... the aforementioned kids are going to be needing some aforementioned time.
No problem. I totally understand. I thank you for taking the time that you have. It's a pleasure to get to talk to you again. But so the final hard-hitting question is inspired, I had asked this in a previous interview. I was inspired by my best friend, Katie Delaney. What's your favorite kind of pie?
Favorite kind of pie? That's a great question. My default is apple pie a la mode. Warmed up, of course, or preferably fresh. Yeah, I'm going to have to say apple pie a la mode. Although I did just have an oh la la berry, which I didn't even know what the hell that was, but it was awfully good. So if you ever see one of those, you'll be in pretty good shape.
All right. Well, that's...
What is your favorite kind of pie? Did you already answer that on the show? And
I actually haven't. No one's asked me that question. Thank you for asking. Yeah. My favorite kind of pie is actually apple pie as well, but I prefer it cold with ice cream on it. I like it fresh, but then in the fridge for a few hours with a little ice cream on time. Yeah. Like me some
you're stoked, because then yours is like almost always ready, because you can just pull that out of the fridge and it's ready to go.
There you go.
Nice.
Well, Michael,
you ever do the cheese on the pie?
No, is that a thing? People do cheese on
that's
pie?
like, I think that's supposed to be like the real hardcore American, probably before there was ice cream, I guess. You would have apple pie with a slice of cheddar cheese.
Interesting. I might have to try that. That's an interesting. I had not heard that before. Educational too. Funny, fun, and educational. Thank you, Mike Phirman. This is a pleasure. I will try and going forward. Let's not catch up once every 5 years. Let's do another interview maybe next year sometime.
That sounds good, man.
But thank you for taking the time, and I appreciate everything. I will post links to the new song in the post when it goes up. It's a bi-weekly show, so I have a couple of banked, so it'll probably come out in about a month or so. But as soon as it does, I'll shoot you a message on Facebook so you can share it around.
That's great. Thanks, man. And, hey, good luck with the rest of the show. Good luck with until I talk to you again.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure. Take care of yourself.
All right, buddy. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed these interviews, please subscribe to this and the Crash Chords podcast on iTunes, where you can also rate us and review us. You can also like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Crash Chords Web, our Tumblr, and our YouTube channel. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to post in the comment area below each post. And keep the discussion going, because remember, music is life, and life is good.